This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Today on the Healthy Business Podcast, I am chatting to the lovely Sarah Giles, who is a confidence coach. And we know in business that we have to be, to a somewhat degree, confident when we're running our own business. And that can really have a massive impact on not just how we show up to our audience and our clients, but also how we show up as ourselves. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. Really, really lovely to have you and to be chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And today we're going to be talking more specifically around embracing change and how important resilience and having a growth mindset is, aren't we?
Yes, yeah. We've definitely been through a lot of change over the last year, haven't we?
We certainly have. I think, the last year has really tested people in so many different ways, hasn't it? As to whether it's, juggling things at home, juggling things with business. A lot of people have had to close their doors, and lockdown has tested us in all matter of ways, both from our confidence sometimes, if you have had to close your doors, having that confidence and kind of building that back up again to re-see clients, especially if you work in person, let alone having that growth mindset to continue to push forward with your business. So tell us a little bit more about what that actually means. What does kind of growth mindset mean?
Yeah, so first of all, we've been through obviously lots of change in the last year. And I think, and sometimes change comes to us out of our control, like COVID, obviously. And then there's other change which we choose. So it might be that we want to lose weight or things. But the important thing is that we look at change always as an opportunity. And so if we're operating from a fixed mindset, we're almost limiting ourselves because we're looking at things in perhaps a negative way. We're a bit resistant to change. So we want to operate from that best place possible, which is when we're in that growth mindset. So, we'll persevere when things get difficult. We'll perhaps take criticism on board. We'll learn from our mistakes. And we'll just see things in a more positive way. We won't, dwell on the negative aspects of change.
You're so right. I think, change is the one constant thing, isn't it, in our lives, that whether we, as you say, whether we choose it or whether it's things outside of our control, the days change, the weeks change. We're in this constant cycle where we're moving forward, and our mindset totally affects how we kind of lead that, whether it's business or our lifestyle. And I think it's really important that we do reflect on that and almost have that as part of our kind of guiding principles. If you're open to change, then using that as an opportunity is actually really exciting, because we can then future-proof our business. We can look at sustainable ways of doing things. It also means that for many of us who run our own business, we can choose when we take time out. We can choose when we have holidays. We choose our boundaries. And that's, for me, is one of the biggest benefits of running your own business, isn't it? Is that you get to have that choice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes it's that fear that sets in, isn't it? But there's lots of different phases to change, but we go through the point of we're just unsure of where we're perhaps going. There's lots of uncertainty. The overwhelm kicks in, the procrastination. We've all been there. I've definitely been there myself. And, things show up as well. Sometimes we don't realise the impact our mind has on our body. So, things will show up, and sometimes we perhaps leave things too late before we make some actual changes. So, for example, I know when I was in a particular role that was quite stressful, I went through a period of having really bad eczema on my hands, to the point that it was just so painful to even wash them. But I didn't realise at the time that it was all that built up stress and anxiety from my job.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And I think for those of us that work in the health and wellness space, a lot of what we think within our mind actually can manifest itself into physical symptoms. And, eczema for you is one of those big things. And I know stress and anxiety and all of those other things that we can experience, especially over the last year, has caused some physical symptoms for people. And for me, that's a big part of running business in a healthy way, is that we don't want to let that get to a physical symptom. We want to be proactive in managing things. And if you want more and if you want to change, it's looking at how you can do that in a way that works for you. I love the idea of being proactive about change, from what you were saying, of kind of not just using it as an opportunity, but actually, what COVID has given a lot of people in business is using this time as a reflection period of how actually do they want to run their business? How do they want to run their lifestyle? And yes, that can be quite scary when you do want to make some changes, but actually it's a real opportunity for you to make those changes, because you can use that as a reason that why you're doing things in a different way, whether that's changing your working hours, whether that's changing who you work with. There's so many different ways that you can look to make change.
Definitely.
If someone is feeling a little bit nervous and they're listening to this thinking, okay, well, it's all well and good looking for opportunities and being positive on change, if there is that fear that's still kind of kicking in, how would you recommend people start kind of working through that fear?
I think so. To start with, it's getting really clear on like your purpose, your values, and what's important to you, because that's going to help drive you and keep you focused through, to push through some of those fears. Because I think when we're unsure of where we're heading, we need to focus on the things that we can control. So yes, things come up that we don't always know what's going to happen, do we? But we can focus on the areas that we can control in life. So look at the things that are important to you, making sure that you're clear on that purpose, but also have that time to connect with yourself. I think we're often so busy on that hamster wheel, and we're always we overthink things. We're always, the worries set in, don't they? And sometimes we just need to learn to accept some of that and think about that worst case scenario. So if there's something that you're really fearing, think, what is the worst that could happen? If it perhaps doesn't go to plan, what's the worst that can happen? And actually, when you write it down, or just reflect on it, it's often not as bad as you think. And it's about using those problem solving skills and looking for alternative solutions. And I will say that planning and practice is a big part of that. It's a big part of our ways with our confidence as well, because we fear doing things because we don't have the confidence, but we need to do them in the first place to get competent at them and to build our confidence.
It's
So
amazing.
it's
None of us, for all of us, every single thing we do, we've had to learn how to do it.
yeah,
Even as, right from the start, from, kind of being a baby, it's learning to walk, it's learning to talk, it's learning to eat, isn't it? All of those things, every single thing we do, we have to learn how to do it. And that's that sort of pushing through. It's almost finding that inner child again, isn't it? Of not being afraid to try things and just going kind of straight into it. And I think as we get older, of course, there's potentially more risk attached to it, or we perceive there's more risk to something. And I think that can be quite scary. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer of getting, clarity so that you can then build a strategy or build a plan.
Yeah.
And the first step of that is actually acknowledging things, isn't it? Because when you acknowledge things, and then you can make the plan to change things. And it's doing it without judgment, I think, as well, isn't it? Of actually, we can't control the situation that we're in, but we can control how we react to it, and we can control how we move forward from it. But yeah, the first step of that is really, really acknowledging it, as you say, and kind of spending that time reflecting, acknowledging it, getting clear on actually what you want to achieve, whether that's business, whether that's life, and then putting a plan in place to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Because we don't, like you said, sometimes it's that fear that we don't want to delve deeper sometimes. And so we put it off, don't do it, and then don't take the action. So it's actually looking at what areas do I need to improve? How can I get there? What can I do to help me? Do I need to get some support in? And actually that's okay, because sometimes people are afraid to reach out for that support as well. But that can be part of your plan. We're not all perfect at everything, are we? We all need to get some help.
Absolutely.
I know I do.
It'd be actually really boring if we were all the same, wouldn't it? if we all had similar strengths, similar weaknesses, the world would
Yeah.
be a pretty dull place. And I think it's acknowledging that you don't have to be perfect at everything, but there will
No.
be someone who is amazing at what you're not so good at. And bringing those people in, whether it's through a virtual assistant, whether it's someone to do your accounts, whatever it is that you need to do,
Yeah.
you don't need to do this on your own. Running a business is hard. There's so many things to think about. There's always something to do, but actually you don't need to do everything. So recognizing that, as you said, kind of taking those steps to get clear on how you want to run your business, but also what support potentially you do need. And it's not necessarily just business. I think when we are our own business owners, we're quite often juggling other things at home or family life, children, all those kind of things as well. That actually it might be investing in a cleaner, or it might be investing in a different way of shopping. There's lots of different things that you can do to ease that kind of fear of change, or to help you move forward with the things you want to move forward with.
Definitely. It's about easing that pressure from yourself, because when we're in that negative place or we're worrying a lot, it breeds anxiety. And so we want to change our mindset around that.
Definitely. No, I'm a big believer in that. And I think I was recently doing a talk actually, and it was about, if we let things kind of just sit and settle and we decide not to make changes, actually that can impact our health. And I've seen that in many different things that have come up from my journey, not just from a business perspective, but also lifestyle perspective. That if I just forget about it, if I ignore it, actually it does manifest itself in different things, and it's generally our health that gets affected. Whether, as you say, it's more of a mental health side of things through stress and anxiety, or whether it's something more physical, like for you, the eczema side of things. For me, it's different things as well, and it's really important that but also that we recognize what it is that we can do to ease that. Whether it's adding in, I don't know, something like exercise that becomes part of your daily routine, that helps you move through those things, that's just as important as seeing a client. You
Definitely.
recognizing what you need to be healthy in your business, to have that successful business is key.
Yeah, it's
Go on, carry on.
sorry. No, I was just going to say, yeah, you want to keep your mind calm. So even, trying some new things that you haven't done before, whether you try some journaling or yoga or meditation, even you only need to do it even for a few minutes at a time, just to notice that benefit. The more you do it, the more
Definitely.
you can bring it into your routines.
Yeah, I want to pick further into that actually, because one of the things we mentioned right at the beginning was resilience. And I think that's a big part of what we've all had to build up without even realizing over the last year or so, that, our boundaries have been tested. We've had to, if you've got children, you've had to homeschool those whilst trying to juggle your business, whilst continuing to bring money in. That's a lot of things that can play up on us. And without even realizing, our stress levels have probably increased, that resilience has had to increase, our barriers have gone up, that as the world starts reopening, we've got to feel comfortable about that change again. And it isn't just as simple as saying, right, let's get back to normal, because we're in a totally different space, and what was normal isn't necessarily either what you want to be your new normal, or what other people want you to be new normal. So I think I'd love to kind of delve into resilience a little bit more, and how people can not be selfish about their time or anything like that, because that's not what it's about. But it's actually about protecting you as a person, as a business owner, or as a, whether you've got family as well. So I would love to hear your sort of advice on that, really, around resilience.
Yeah. So as you said, we're continually having to adapt, aren't we? Because things are changing, things are opening up now. So it's looking after yourself is so important, and having those. I know for me, sorry, I'm jumping around. I know for me, during the first lockdowns, suddenly, life, everything merged into one: work, children, as you've just said, Sarah, and it it was just chaos. And I think the thing that helped me through that was clearly looking at adapting, changing my routines, and changing the boundaries. And I think we have to continually review that, because what might be working now may then change again, next week, because other things have come up. So I think it's always again around that planning and preparation to help you, because there's nothing worse, is there, than when we perhaps you wake up and you start your day snoozing your alarm, and the day just feels, you just wake up, you're rushing around, maybe juggling children, trying to get out the door, whatever it is, it doesn't set us up for a great day. So it's looking at how you can make sure that you're getting the best out of yourself, how you can, perform at your best, because we all need to look after ourselves before supporting others. And so I think having those routines in place and, developing those healthy habits and things do play a big part. But I think the key is reflection, because sometimes again we just don't realize the importance of some of this stuff. I know obviously your audience mostly are in the health and wellness space, so I know that we do more. But again, when we're in business, we often put ourselves at the bottom of our to-do list because we're so focused on our clients.
I was just
So
going to say that
yeah,
sometimes we're our own worst enemy, aren't we? We're so good at giving advice to other people, but actually we forget ourselves, and we're so keen to help other people, and we give and give and give, that actually that can sometimes reflect on ourselves, on our health, and how we run our own businesses.
yeah. And it all goes back to that purpose and what's important to you. If it is that you want that balance with your family or whatever it is, you need to make sure that you have those routines to support that. Whether freedom is a big thing for you, because otherwise you just then get if things aren't aligned, you then get that conflict and it becomes a challenge.
And actually, it really builds into what we were talking about earlier around having that confidence, that if you
Yes.
know what you've got ahead of the day, you've got your boundaries in place, you can be confident about what you're going to achieve because you already know that. And
Yes.
that leads to that positivity. And then that has that upward spiral into growth mindset, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
actually you know what you're doing is going to help you because you've already worked that out. You've got that clarity. You've then got that plan. You've got your boundaries in place. You've got everything in there that you need to. You've outsourced stuff that potentially you don't want to
Yeah.
do or can't do. And that has that positive impact of not just you feeling more confident, but actually you're focusing on the stuff that's actually making a difference, whether
Definitely.
that's family, whether that's business. And that ultimately then leads to you seeing growth, you seeing the results. And then that has that onward spiral as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. You make better decisions, don't you, when you're in that place of operating from a growth mindset?
Absolutely. And I think that, for people who are kind of new to the idea of growth mindset, the opposite to that is that sort of negative space, that, that lack mindset, isn't it? And I think, when we almost look for reassurance around us that, when we're in that growth mindset, we look for all the positive stuff that's happening. But on the flip side, if we're feeling, negative, or we're not sleeping well, or we don't have our boundaries in place, those things keep coming up for us, and it almost reassures us that we are in that lack mindset and we should stay there and we're not going to grow. So
Yeah.
it's really important that we do try and flip that. And I know we're talking today and we're making it sound like it's really easy, but it is about getting that clarity, isn't it? It's about taking those steps.
Yeah, and it's just taking those small steps, isn't it? Because we don't want to stay stuck. If anyone is feeling in that negative space right now, we don't want to dwell too much on that. So it's looking at, those baby steps, things that you can do just to help you move a bit closer, to move you out of the dip, I always call it. If we get stuck there for too long, we find it harder to get out.
Definitely. And I want to dip into your journey a little bit here, just so that people can kind of understand the changes that you've made. And I'll share some of mine as well, because, you've spent a lot of time in the corporate world, and it's, you needed to shift things, didn't you? So
Yeah.
given that you're a confidence coach, I want to give people confidence that it actually is possible to make some changes and that you don't have to stay stuck. And you don't have to stay stuck for very long either. There are things that you can do to make changes. So tell us a little bit more about kind of where you've come from and what your background is as well.
Yeah, so my background's in HR. So I had my career for 16 years, and I always I was happy in my career until I think things really changed after I had children. Things become more difficult to juggle. I was having to travel quite a bit in my roles. And if I'm honest now, when I look back, I wasn't happy over probably the last 5 years of my career. Things just just didn't quite feel fulfilled, but I kept going for a little bit. And then suddenly I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I was neglecting my own self-care because I was running from meetings, running to pick children up, just, it was chaotic on that, as I always say, the hamster wheel. But I never at the time, sometimes we have that fear of stepping off of it because it's what we've always known. And I just started with making that plan and thinking, right, something's got to change now. I can't do this anymore. What can I do? And for me, it was to start studying, actually, which might sound silly when I was already really busy in a busy role and juggling family, but actually it's something I really enjoyed. It was because it was something I was passionate about, and it almost gave me that time out to do something that I enjoyed. So actually that helped me with my own well-being. And then, as I said, I made a plan, and actually the beginning of lockdown last year for me was that real point where I just thought enough's enough. And so I actually left my career sooner than perhaps I had planned, because I had that time for reflection and thought, no, I'm going to get off this hamster wheel now and I'm just going to do it. And I made the decision and did it. And it's never easy. There's challenges, and coming into business is a whole other challenges with mindset that I'd never experienced before, in my career, because I was always doing the same thing. I knew what I was doing. And obviously, when you come into business, you're having to learn lots of new skills that we haven't had to necessarily do before. But I think to anyone watching that wants to make some changes, it just starts with that plan. And the biggest thing is, don't just focus on your own plans. Don't worry about what other people are doing, the pace of other people, because I think sometimes we then get caught up in that, thinking, I'm not there yet, I'm here, and but we're all different. And actually, you want to do things at your own pace, because otherwise you're going to end up feeling overwhelmed and won't move forward anyway.
I love that. Some really great advice there. And one of the things that stood out for me when you said that you started doing your studying, it was actually something for you. And I can really resonate with that, because that was my catalyst for retraining, leaving the corporate world, retraining as a holistic health therapist. Was I needed to do something for me. Very different circumstance in the fact that I had a 2-month-old baby and needed something for me. And I just, away from the baby world, away from thinking about corporate stuff and whether I was going to go back or not, but I knew something needed to change. And we're not saying that, go back and study things now, but I think it's recognizing that point that if you know something needs to change, you need to find that time to get that clarity to make those changes. And it is an investment in time, but actually the rewards that you can get from that not only help you, but actually you can help all the people that you want to help by taking that, pressing pause for a moment, and actually seeing what is possible. Because as you said, you can then make a plan to make those things happen. And yes, that can be really scary. That can feel, change can be scary. But if I go back to what we said right at the beginning, if we look at change as an opportunity, then that can actually feel really exciting. And what I loved also that you said there was not comparing yourself to other people, because that can really have a negative effect on us, can't it? Especially in the social media world that we live in, where we see everyone's social media worth of a perfectionist life and what people want to put out to the wider world. It's not necessarily about what's going on behind closed doors and all the stresses of what we see of running a business and juggling life and all those other things. And it is a journey. I think, everyone is on a journey. No one is ever finished in that journey. We're all continuing to learn. We're all continuing to evolve. And actually, your business can evolve. You're allowed to make those changes. No one says that you have to do what you've always done. And actually, if we've always do what we've always done, then we become even more stuck. So using change as an opportunity.
And I think, and just remember that even the most successful people have failed lots, many times before. What we see, you've just said about the social media, is their end result. Sometimes we don't always see the struggles, the anxiety, the pacing up and down before doing a presentation or a Facebook Live. We don't necessarily see all of that, do we? So just people have been where you are, so don't ever, feel that you're the only one that's perhaps,
Absolutely.
you're not capable, because we all are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's even the biggest, richest, millionaire, billionaires, they've all been through journeys. And if you read, their books, their stories, there's always stuff that has kind of come up that has either meant that they've had to pause or pivot or change. And that's okay, because actually we learn from all of those things. It's hard when you feel like you're in that moment at the time, but having that positive mindset, looking at every opportunity or everything that kind of comes up as potentially a reason to change or a reason to look and reflect and evolve things, can really, really help you and actually potentially have an even more successful business. So I
Yeah,
think that's what's exciting.
definitely. If you want to incorporate those things that bring you happiness and joy as well, don't you, in your whole life? So you want to create that life and business that you really want, because that's why we've done it. You want to, you want to enjoy that.
Definitely. It's one of the things that I talk about a lot, with the importance of not just financially successful, but also from a lifestyle perspective, because otherwise, why are you running your own business? Like it has to work for you on your terms. And those terms for all of you are going to be different, because you all want different things. You've all got different lifestyle setups. But if you can have that business, if you can build a business model that works for you on your terms, in a way that means that you can do the things you want to do, for me, that's a happy, healthy business. And it means that you're healthy as well from a physical and mental perspective. And that doesn't necessarily happen overnight. In fact, it very rarely happens overnight. But taking those steps to know what to do, to how to do it, is what's really important, I think. One of the really big things that I'm taking out of our conversation is just getting clear, having that clarity, spending time on what it is you want to achieve, what it is that you want to go through. And if you are listening to this, then go back to one of my really early podcasts where I talk about the importance of getting clear on your goals from a lifestyle perspective and a financial perspective, because that is so important. And I share some of the frameworks on how you can do that. So if you're listening to that going, yeah, that will make sense. How on earth do I do that? Where do I start? Take a listen to one of the earlier podcasts, and that will help you on there. So I think what we've kind of been saying today, obviously, is that getting clear, but actually finding ways to have that positive mindset, because that will have that spiral effect for growth mindset, and help you build your resilience, that whatever does throw at you, you're equipped to manage that, aren't you?
Yeah, and just believe that you can, and you will. With a plan, you can achieve what you want to.
Definitely. I love that. So if people are thinking, okay, I really need to work on my confidence and need some support on that, what would you recommend them do?
First of all, I would start with just thinking, what areas in your life are you finding that you're lacking in confidence? Try and reflect on that, because as we talked about earlier, if we don't know what areas need improving, then we can't improve it. So I would reflect on that first of all, and then look at, okay, what small actions can I start to take to help me practice some of those things? So if I use an example, I'll just talk about a Facebook Live, because it's something that perhaps many are familiar with. If it's that you haven't got the confidence, you don't feel confident enough to do one, then it might be that, could you practice just doing it with somebody else first of all before you go live? It doesn't have, I think sometimes we overthink things and try and think it's so complicated, but it's not. Or just record yourself and listen to yourself, and then look back and think, right, what can I learn from that? What can I improve on for next time? So it just needs to be those small steps. It doesn't need to mean you've got to suddenly go from naught to get to that end result. Remember all the little strategies in between.
Definitely. I love that. And I think I think the other thing to remember is that people buy from people. And actually, if you do mess up on a live, it's not the end of the world. Like, that's
No.
okay.
Yeah.
People are wanting to know you and to see you and, hear the value that you're giving them. It doesn't matter if, your child walks in or you drop something or you'll stutter or you need a glass of water. All of that is okay, because that's completely human and it's completely normal, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's the same with anything. The more you do it, the more you practice, you'll just, before you know it, you'll just be doing it. it'll be just, easy for you.
Definitely. I'll let you into a little secret. So I remember doing my first ever Facebook Live and feeling absolutely petrified, and I could feel my legs wobbling and all those kind of things. And I never thought that a few years down the line, I'd be up on a stage and kind of talking to hundreds of people. But it is possible. And it's interesting when we reframe it, because I used to do that all the time in my corporate days, where I'd be running massive events and I'd be talking to people. But when it becomes personal and it's your business, that's when the shift changes, isn't it? And that's when that sort of inner critic and our confidence can start wavering a little bit.
Definitely. And no, I definitely paced up and down the rooms as well before I was first doing Facebook Lives, because I don't naturally necessarily enjoy it. But the more you do it, as I said, you just get more comfortable with it, don't you?
Definitely. Really, really great chatting to you. I think there's so many nuggets that have come out of today. If people are kind of listening and want to find out a little bit more about you and, what you do and how you help people, where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook, I'm on all the social media platforms, but probably Facebook. So I'm Sarah Giles Coaching, and I do have a free Facebook group as well called the Inner Calm and Confidence Lounge.
Brilliant. And it's so important, remaining calm, having that confidence is kind of what we've all been talking about today, hasn't it?
Yes.
You've also got a free guide, haven't you, that I wanted to mention, because you've got something that, if people are thinking, oh, this sounds amazing, I actually could do with a bit of a confidence boost. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that's 4 steps, again, to help you find your inner calm and growing confidence. So it's a guide. It's about 14 pages, but lots of useful info. I share some of my, things that I've experienced before to help you put into place a little plan of action.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I can.
We'll make sure that the links go into the show notes so everyone can get a copy of that one. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. You can get a copy of my best-selling book, Healthy You, Wealthy Business, over on my website, sarahcookcoaching.com/book. In there, you'll find practical advice, useful tools, and real actionable steps to help you be your best self and build a wildly successful business with ease, so that you can create a limitless life in the way that you choose.